Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 569. Nice. And today we're going to be playing Annie Gwen. And so, with the release of the Dreamlit Paths, I've been really hammering home ways to take advantage of these stories like the Arena's Greatest. One of the things that we focused in on the previous video is that these stories do produce skills, right? So if we use the first active of the Arena's Greatest, it gives a unit +2 attack for the round, but that also counts as a skill activation. And so I've been wanting to come out and really explore these cards like Jen or like Annie or like Ravenbloom Conservatory that really want to see you play these fast spells, slow spells, and skills, since you do get multiple activations out of each of these different stories. So typically you would play a card like Imperial Demolitionist, which only gives you 1 activation per card. Now if we're out here using something like the Arena's Greatest, we get 3 activations per card, which lets us really speed up the leveling of these skill-based units. And so we have a handful of these skill-based cards in here, Annie being the main focus as far as units goes, Ravenbloom Conservatory as our top end of the deck, and then the Prefect as the unit that is what I think as severely overlooked within this current meta. The Prefect is actually exceptionally strong with all of these stories running around. And so that's the kind of general and core idea of the deck that we're bringing forth today. Is we're trying to take advantage of the stories in addition to these skill-based units. And so as you do come out and look to play the Noxon-based story, the Arena's Greatest, it does push you towards the aggro-based decks, and that's what we're trying to pull off here with this build that we have. And so up front, we have the 10 1-drops, the 3 Annies, the 3 Legion Saboteurs, and then the 2 Elegant Edges and the 2 Precious Pets. What I want to really call out with our unit selection within this deck is it does look like this weird monstrosity of 2s and 3s, is that with all of the Gloom mechanics and all of the Bandle City decks running around with pie tosses, it's very important that you're not just running a bunch of 1 health units onto the board. And so if you're looking at a lot of the kind of classically strong 1-drops like say Legion Saboteur, a big pile of them only have 1 health. That's also the problem with the Hallowed package that you don't see within our deck here, is that the 1-drop has 1 health and the 2-drop has 1 health, and it's too hard to prevent your opponent from just going Value City all over your ass, having all of those 1s running around. And so we do have a handful of 1s within the deck between the Rune Squire and the Precious Pet, but that's why you see some of these oddities like Elegant Edge. The other thing I like to call out with this early game is it is quite good to have these early game fearsomes like the Precious Pet and Elegant Edge to catch that bonus from the Arena's Greatest. It does not feel good if you play a unit on the first turn and then you hit it with the Arena's Greatest on the second turn and just trade it with an Omen Hawk. And so we are looking towards those fearsomes to help protect up the curve. Otherwise, once we get out of the aggro stage of the early game, we do have this very overwhelm heavy mid game between the Prefect being an Overwhelm unit, Kato the Arm passing out Overwhelms, Might passing out Overwhelm, and then the Rune Squire potentially generating the Overwhelm equipment. And so we are able to transform from being this very early game oriented centric style of deck into the Overwhelm finishers type of thing. We do have a lot of anti-combat measures, if you will, ways to shut down the opposing blockers as we do try to finish off the game with the Arena's Greatest, making it so your opponent cannot block with 1 unit, the Pirouette for the stun, and then the Arachnoid Sentry for another stun. Last but not least, this deck does have a bit of a burn component to potentially finish off the games. If you do get the Tybalack on board to make all of your skills deal an extra point of damage, just kind of gravy. You know, you don't really need it, but it is kind of nice when it pops off. But we have the Mana Soul Student doing ping damage, the Beautiful Disaster with the Drain, and the Imperial Demolitionist with another +2 damage to the opponent's face. So we have a handful of ways to deal damage outside of combat to finish off games once they've started to go downhill. And so that's it. That's what we're doing battle with today. Let's go ahead, dive on in, see if we can't get a good game or 2. Maybe even 3. Maybe even 5, who knows? And so I will say with this deck, I find myself misplaying it quite a bit and it being absolutely crucially terrible. This is one of these decks to where every point of damage does matter, and you will find yourself in some of these spots to where your opponent's at 1 and you didn't Mana Soul Student when you could have, and you just did something a little bit out of order. It's very Impractical is the word that came to mind, and I know that's not the right one. It's very unforgiving. There we go. In terms of playing a card out of order, so I do recommend getting a bunch of reps in with this if you really want it to go well. Now here, this is kind of an interesting space, right? I want to get maximum damage out here against the Hecarim deck, but it's a little worrisome if we play a Precious Pet and then he drops a 2-3. So I'm still just going to go for it. We will miss out on 1 point of damage if he drops a 2-3. We'll miss out on the skill from the Legion Saboteur, but I think there's enough of a collection of units within the Hecarim Ionia deck to where they either have to trade, right? So if he puts down a Redeemed Prodigy and has to trade, I feel like that's a win for us. Or if he just has like oh boy, he's getting down and dirty with these Shark Chariots. But I feel like a trade would have been an okay thing, or there's a lot of factors to where they just can't block, and so I think it was fairly worthwhile there. Now I'm definitely going to get Gwen on board. I want to snatch up this lifesteal while we have the moment, and getting this second Gwen in hand with Thread the Needle could be exceptionally important on the next turn, where if opponent only has one ephemeral, we could potentially shut down both of those Shark Chariots. The other thing that we're going to have to worry about is the potential presence of a the potential presence of a Shark Summoner, whatever the fuck that Ionia spell is called, as those lifesteal units are going to be fairly problematic at this point. But got a nice boom in. We're definitely going to be looking to open attack on our next attack token. Hopefully we can get a shutdown here. Oh, that's it? Interesting. So I do want to get some amount of blocking in here. Like, I think a Gwen block is probably safe. If he has the... Actually, we don't really have to block. We can just take all of this damage, and then if he plays the Shark Summoner spell, we're only dealing with 4 units. I think that's okay.
Hey, Annie. Think Tibbers wants to come play?
Does have the Shark Summoner spell. Oh, we need to... So who's the one that we want to protect here? Right, we're going to spend Gwen. We're not going to let him gain any health. Is the Prefect the one that we actually want to be blasting with here? We are going to get to follow up with a couple of skills next turn, and then maybe follow up with the Dragon. So yeah, I think Gwen is the one that we probably want to be losing. Let's put the blocker out just in case. Or, I mean, my concern is that if they have like the +2/+2 thing, then we're just going to we're going to lose the game. And so I think that we do need to thread the needle off of the Prefect onto this other thing. We'll protect our Gwen, and then we can still look to replay the Legion Saboteur. I guess the other angle between this is we do have Disintegrate in hand, and so if he was going to +2/+2 one of these units, we could then follow up with the Disintegrate. But at the end of the day, I think we should be able to use Gwen and use the Legion Saboteur for the 3 damage to face, and not need to physically deal combat damage next turn. See if we can't bait him with that Annie, right? just throw the Annie out first. Be like, oh, if you got a spell, here's Annie. Maybe you want to cast it on her. All right, seems like we're in a good spot though. Smells like burning. So I was gonna say, hopefully things don't get too crazy in here, but if they do, we still have that follow-up dragon to hopefully finish the game off with. So GG, well played. You can see that Gwen flip, you know, it does seem a little bit odd playing Gwen without any of the hallowed package, but I assure you she's not that challenging to flip. Like, if you get one attack in with Gwen, and then you play a like a Kato the Arm on her or something, she'll flip on her own. And so if she ever gets a block in, which is fairly common, then she's easy to flip. You just don't need that big stack of hallowed to make her effective within this stack. So nice May the 4th. Hope you nerds are enjoying your Star Wars day, or enjoyed it yesterday, or enjoyed it last week whenever you catch the video, you know? It's not too much celebration going on here. Like back in the days of old, back in the days of watching Star Wars on TBS, there might have been the potential to get the full trilogy in, but now there's just like fucking 11 of them or something. it's just completely off the table. You just gotta pick one and go with it, and have that be your movie for the day. Empire Strikes Back is what you should have picked, but it's that's how it goes. Come out here and start being a Star Wars elitist. I'll be real with you, I don't even really like sci-fi. I really prefer I prefer the fantasy type things, and so if I had to pick between Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, it's gonna be Lord of the Rings, and so it's kind of is what it is. It's the thing that gets me is in the fantasy settings, it's always set up to where it's like believable, and so in the sense that, how are we going to handle this here? Hang on. I'm intending on not open attacking next turn, and then having Annie on board with the Mana Soul. I don't think we need to get Rune Squire down just yet. I want to maximize this damage out of this thing. We're not going to get a reasonable, elegant edge this game. But no, it's like fantasy is always steeped in the unbelievable, right? With people casting lightning bolts and wizard spells and shit. But sci-fi always tries to carry that air of believability since it's taking place in the future, and it always just strikes me as this bullshit to where they come up with something that's just physically impossible and not believable, and it just kind of ruins it for me. And so I can't remember which movie it was. It was like a Colin Farrell movie that was a remake of an old movie. Like I think it was a remake of a Schwarzenegger flick or something, and it's like they're taking the elevator through the center of the earth, and that shit just pisses me off to no end. But the thing that they actually did well and enjoyed in that movie is they had like science goo, right? That's one of the things that really chips my ass, is when the protagonist of the story like goes through all of this nonsense and they're all cut up and beat up, and then 2 days of time pass and they're all just magically healed. And then within that, they were like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, bro. We got some magic goo to put on you," and that was enough. That was all they needed to finish off the day. And so, get your magic goo. All right, let's focus in on this game though. How's this gonna go? So typically he's going to use the Iron Legion onto the Shadow Apprentice, but I could see him realistically. Oh, he goes for the Glen Keeper. Okay. I think we can kind of battle with that.
I have my orders.
We're going to come in with a big overwhelm turn. We can overwhelm the Kato and then Kato onto the Mana Soul. Should probably figure out how much damage that is, right? Oh, fuck. That's painful.
What we do is so much bigger.
Really just kind of aces everything with our turn. I think we still need to attack with the Legion Saboteur to get the extra point of damage in on the Mana Soul. But that's fairly brutal what just happened to us. It's going to be interesting, though, seeing what comes out of his units, and that, like, typically playing against this deck, when you have the Iron Conquest, you start copying the Shadow Apprentices. It's very strange to see him actually come in and copy the Glen Keeper. And if we get hit with Dragon Ambush this turn, we're just dead. But it's so strange seeing these things. We're gonna be pretty hard fucked this game.
Embrace your fate as I have mine.
So he's going to get one more challenger unit out of this. If he brings in the attack here, we have to lose both of our big boys, but that's fine. I think we're going to let him play one more unit and then come in with the dragon, or we just stuck. We have the overwhelm fragment for the dragon. Maybe we just have to get blockers on board. Right, we can, if we take the 6 hit off of the Glen Keepers, it looks like a 7 hit. And then we have 4 units on board. We'll fall to 1. I mean, it doesn't sound great. I think that's where we're at. It's like if we only add the Enraged Fire Spitter to the board, it kind of deals with 2 units, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
No one's the wiser. I will make this right.
You have to block the Fearsome.
Routes
Come out
closed.
here and block these other dum-dums. So yeah, I think we're short, but I guess the interesting point with this is there is a touch of potential that he can't block the Precious Pet. Like, I know he has this 3 attack Fearsome thing in hand, but there is a touch of potential for that. Why doesn't this guy have 8 attack anymore, right? That's what we need to see. So let's see what he comes at us with. We can. Oh no, we're still gonna be short even this way. One short. Yeah. Well, who knows? We might pick up that Pirouette or pick up a Imperial Demolitionist if he doesn't have a way to kill us on the open next turn. We might be able to like slam in the Sentry and shut him down. There's potential. Another Dragon Boy turns up. Okay, we're dead. Not certain if we missed any damage that game. That's one of those things, right? To where you'll often find the opponent just at the cusp of death, and you have to go back and really figure out if you maximized your damage throughout the entirety of the game. It can be tough. It's tough. So whenever you're playing a deck like this and you see your opponent at 1, you're like, maybe I could have plundered that Fearsome unit, or I could have gotten an extra Mana Soul activation, or I could have played things in a little different order. There's a lot of options that you have with this thing, and so that big turn to where we got double stage handed might have been able to do it a little differently. Maybe it would have been okay to go for the dragon there. It's tough with this. All right, up against the Battle Scars. This type of deck has historically been one of the biggest problems that you can run into with this style of aggro. We'll see if we can't change things up here a little bit, change the story of time, but usually a struggle. A fairly terrible opener here. Like, having the turn 1 story is not that bad, but we really need a better unit for it on turn 2 here. Just playing Demolitionist is not good. And he's going to have to be good enough. Not a particularly strong combo, right? And there's a bunch of just like 2/3s that get the shutdown here. Yeah. So I guess we'll take the trade, but being up against Battle Scars and having a really shitty opener like this, have to assume that this is going to be a very uphill climb to try and finish this one off. Almost literal nothing to do this turn. I guess we'll take the stun on the Snow Dog. At least keep their units shrunk a little bit, keep our mana spend up. Really sucks to have to drop this kind of unit, but we're struggling, fam. We're struggling.
What a strange, wonderful world.
How can Brom help?
Nothing to fear.
Stand behind Brom.
Alright, no reason to send the story in. I don't think our next attack is going to be a big one where we're trying to go for the can't block mode. I think we're a fair ways away from that, and so that seems pretty reasonable. We're getting built up to this mid game though with Kato and Gwen and the Fire Spitter to where maybe we can pull something off. You're just gonna give us the free damage. So let's block the Snow Dog. If he has a transfusion, it doesn't matter either way. We're gonna lose the Gwen. But if he has a Sky Splitter, our Gwen is going to survive this. Would survive the Sky Splitter. This is fine. We gotta shoot our shot at some point. Sure.
By all means, get in my way.
See if he gets that Braum to flip. We have the dragon to potentially take him down. I don't really want to have to like overwhelm mode on the dragon, but might be on the table here. Alright, dragon being big enough just to take down Braum is kind of nice. Interesting. He presents a slow spell and pulls it back. I'm curious what that is. Alright, he'll still go big mode. And if he has something like Sky Splitter, oh wow, we just get the full takedown on his board. Okay. No complaints from Team Bust on that one. Jesus.
Try to understand. I matter.
I have to make the old Battleground, the old Battle Scars video here before long. Rack up that big view count. make my quarter for the month. It does it without fail. Never fails. If you want to get into the content creation game, if you want to get a bunch of views, you just go and make a video playing the Battle Scars deck, and so that's the moneymaker right there. Keep them bills paid. Avalanche. Oh, did not expect that to be a thing. We gonna get fucking zinged? I mean, he's got one card in hand. Let's see how this goes. He drops the GG. Okay. It's like that just turned into like a supremely awkward hand there, as to where I don't really want to open attack. When your opponent only has one card and you have a bunch of stuns in hand, then the open attack doesn't feel that good. But I mean, I guess we could have like put the Demolitionist on the board without dealing the damage. Maybe that would have been a little bit safer. That just feels like you're trying to bait your opponent into some garbage and giving them a chance to play another Avalanche. Like, I think that in that spot, when we go all in with the dragon for the full 10 damage hit with the might, if opponent has harsh winds, we're still just in a great spot anyways, right? We're on board with the dragon. We have 3 cards in hand to his 1 card in hand, and he still needs to do quite a bit of catching up. And so I think that's probably, you know, a very viable reason to just bring the open attack. I like it. I like it. All right, next battle. What do we got? Mordekaiser with Vex. This is... I can go ahead and tell you right now, this is the kind of person that doesn't like to have fun. And so... I can tell you right now. I guarantee you this guy's deck has the Ruination in it. He doesn't like to have fun. I haven't brought this topic up in a long time, as to where, yeah, you got this subset of people, and you're like, hey man, you want to come by this weekend and play some chess? And they're like, no, I'm the best in the world. I'm only going to play against Magnus on the internet. And you're like, no man, we're just trying to have a casual day, you know? Drink some beers, move some bishops and shit. says, you're beneath me. You don't have the same skills that I do. Because I play control decks for fun. That's what I imagine this guy does, you know. So, hey man, you want to come hang out this weekend? Nah. I got control decks to play.
No one's the wiser.
I think we're just going to open on this next turn. Like, the thing that's a real pain point here is, like, if we try to go for the prefect and then he has the... I guess it's not that bad. I was going to say, if he has the...
What good's power if you're not gonna
what's it
use
called? The destroy a unit, deal 5 to a unit or something? That would be kind of annoying and awkward, but this seems fine.
They'll never see
Exactly the kind of unit I would expect out of this guy. Typical non-fun haver playing playing the lifesteal thing. I gotcha, fam. I'm curious if it's actually preferable to have our Ravenbloom Conservatory get blown up as we're hanging out with the Beautiful Disaster in hand. One thing I will note with the Beautiful Disaster is you can just use it. You don't actually have to kill a unit with this. Like, if you're just looking to get to the drain and get to the summon an ephemeral thing, you don't have to kill a unit. You can play the Beautiful Disaster, activate it, it's going to put some kind of shit up in the middle of the screen, and then you can just hit skip. And so, very, very worthwhile to know that, like, especially in this match to where there's not a super huge likelihood that we're going to be using this thing, that you can just burn through it. Sure. Alright, so where are we at now? I was leaning towards just going for Kato. Like, I don't really care to make trades. If he puts Vex on board, nobody really cares. He's just below the threshold of casting Vengeance. And I think this is probably decent protection for Annie, right? The block that he's looking to make and having to make here is going to be putting one of these dum-dums in front of Kato. Maybe we do just have to pass now. And then look for an open attack on 7.
Oh, I want to play.
Alright.
Come on, that all you got?
Like, Dragon is pretty good next turn. Sure. So it will be like a little short of lethal, but it's also before like Mordekaiser would come down. Here's where the real question comes in, though, in that
Better than that.
do we actually cast any spells next turn, right? How bad is it if he just plays Mordekaiser? So he would just have the 2 big units on board. I think I'm on board. We're like very close to the lethal if this works, but I don't think this works a ton of the time. I think a lot of the time he's going to just come in with a Vengeance or something here, but this does give us a lot of opportunity to say, like, get Tybalak on the board or something like this, to where he just can't play Mordekaiser for the round, right? And so it gives us a little bit more opportunity to come in and try and pop off. Get this thing out of here before he's able to cast more spells on it. Make sure we get our Tybalak, and then we can get Tybalak on board, start making these skills pop off a little bit harder. Sure. Would we rather just lead in with the Beautiful Disaster? Maybe that's the way to go. We can take our Plunder, We can drop our beautiful disaster, just go ahead and burn it. And then one of the interesting things here with this is, you know, this is a summon ability on Tybalak. So if we beautiful disaster onto the Tybalak, then we get the that +1 attack and the skill thing again. Fortunately, have to burn through it. So now we do have a real question with the beautiful disaster. I mean, he's down to 5 mana. I think it's okay.
Explosives pride.
It doesn't seem like a good attack. I'll block that all day. That's going to let our dragon attack through for damage. All right, GG. Enjoy playing chess by yourself. Preparing for Magnus, I'm just going to play against myself. Oh, people that play control decks. Oof. I imagine they do this a lot, right? You push your glasses up. Here it comes. Here comes removal spell. Push up the glasses. You go, fucking nerd. That's the way you do it. You gotta make sure you call him a nerd. Alright, how are we gonna kick this off? Up against Mono Fiora. I think we'll hang on to one Arena's Greatest and then look for some units to put on board. It takes them a little bit of time to get up and running. Ew. Ew, that hand looks gross. Elegant Edge here to save the day. And so they typically play 0 units and just Fiora, so we might be able to get on board before they're able to really come in and cause some mischief. Interesting having the Arachnoid Sentry as well to potentially keep her from attacking. He says, "What the fuck, coming at me with the 1/2 Elegant Edge?" Like, Bust, what are you doing? Why are you bringing it so hard? Yeah, I wish we had more stuff we could do. It's so tempting when he's just passing with all of that mana up.
Whoa! I can see the magic.
It just passes again. This is very interesting in the sense that, like, he's just gonna play Fiora next turn. And do we want to just go ahead and set can't block to Fiora? I think we do. I'm just going to go ahead and burn through this Mana Soul, assuming that, like, there's 2 ways that I see this going, right? He either goes into the next turn, plays Fiora, and then we want to set Fiora to can't block, or we go into the next turn and he doesn't have Fiora, and then the game's just fucking over anyways. And so I think this gives us plenty of options in terms of setting her to can't block this turn, and then we have a Arachnoid Sentry to stun her next turn in the event that he does an open attack, and then 2 turns from now we have the Fire Spitter to just hook her out of combat. And so hopefully that's the kind of thing that we can pull off here. She's going to single combat something, probably Annie. That's completely fine. But we have to try and keep her away. It is a little scary. We'll have to see how it plays out in terms of using the dragon on Fiora. Like, if they do come at us with, say, like, Judgment, right? That's a very problematic angle, and so I don't think they're going to have the mana to pull that off. It is something to worry about, though. He just immediately attacks. I feel you. It'd be cool if you didn't do that, but I understand why you might want to.
2 down.
All right, so fairly reasonable chance we're just dead here. Fiora is up to 2. don't think she's going to get to attack next turn, or get to block next turn, but
Fell inverse.
it's like it's very easy to have 2 strikes here, and there's just nothing we can do about it. Holy shit, he's playing spells. That is not what I expected to see. Or playing units. I'm not used to seeing the deck have Soothsayer in it. It's okay. That's just not what I expected. No more strikes. Okay, well, maybe. Maybe.
Help.
He does still have that judgment mana though, which is which is pretty scary. Pretty scary. Form up, okay, don't care. Double strike for the KO. Can't do anything about that. GG.
This will be quick.
I like the spot that got us in. It's a tough place in terms of managing Fiora. We don't have the interactivity one would need to really try and get a shutdown on that deck, and so very, very well tuned to dealing with what we're presenting. But nonetheless, GG. Let's pull this up. We could talk about it a little bit more. I think that was a pretty good segment of games. Get you showing what the deck is capable of doing, and I'm not certain on a lot of the numbers within the deck, right? You do see a lot of the oddities with 1 pirouette and 2 mites and a bunch of twos and threes throughout the thing. You typically, once you've really honed in on what you want the deck to do, you see a lot more threes and a lot less twos, but I think the idea here is pretty good. And this is actually a deck that's, quite capable of aggroing through the ladder. And so I think the questions you would start to ask yourself are, would you ever play this over Annie Jin, right? If you're thinking conceptually that all that matters now is ladder, like in best of 3, you would have some choices, right? Maybe you want to play Annie Gwen so that you can play Jin and some kind of other skills-based deck and try to go as wide as you can with the skills decks. And so as that's no longer really a thing, like, is there a reason to play Annie Gwen or this Annie style of deck over top of Annie Jin? And there are. The thing that you're going to get out of this is Annie Jin tends to really just be like a go wide style of strategy that gets shut down by decks like Nora, right? Decks like Nora tend to be able to just block everything and not care, and then it doesn't have any way to go over the top. To whereas this does have some of the more mid-game elements to it and more of the over-the-top elements to it. And so whereas Annie Jin finds a lot of games to where it can't win unless you have a big stagehand style of turn, right? You're going to play a bird and get a stun, and you're going to play a stagehand and get a stun, and then a Lotus Trap is going to activate and get a stun. And like when all of that goes off, you just pop off and win the game. But this deck can attack from like a different angle, from where it's able to come at the opponent through the overwhelms. It's a little bit more sustainable when your opponent generates those big full boards, or if your opponent's able to get blocking in for a few rounds. You have these opportunities to go over the top with Tybalax, go over the top with these overwhelm units, go over the top with the Mana Soul, Beautiful Disaster, Imperial Demolitionist kind of burn. And so I think there's definitely a world where this deck can exist. The question to me is whether or not like Gwen is the real answer. Right? I really like Gwen in this. I like the lifesteal that she gives. She's a great combatant. The Beautiful Disaster is a fantastically powerful card, and so I think it's good. I think that there's a lot of good stuff going on with this deck, and there's a good chance that this just becomes my kind of regular downtime ladder grinder. And so hopefully we'll be able to come back with this at some point, tune up some of the numbers, and really have a primo solid deck coming at you. So good stuff. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So if everyone enjoyed the video, hopefully maybe learned a thing or two along the way. You had a good time watching. This is Bustin'. We thank you for being here.